I had to call my mom and tell her, "You just beat cancer, but now I have it." What happened was I thought it was benign. I thought it was nothing. I would look at pictures of myself and I would just be like, "Oh my gosh, this thing is so huge. It's getting so big." And it's embarrassing. Like, how did I let this go on for so long? And that's because multiple doctors told me that it was nothing and there was nothing I needed to do about it.
As soon as I tell someone, oh yeah, I have this huge lump on my neck, they're like, wow, I never even noticed it before. But I look at it, stare at it every day, and I also can feel it.
I'm no stranger to cancer. It started really early for me, actually. And that was when my grandma Connie was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was actually before I was even born. My dad was a teenager, and unfortunately, she passed away before I was able to meet her. When I was old enough to really know and talk about my grandma Connie, that's when I really started to understand cancer, and it was at a young age. Her death impacted a lot of my life in ways that I still don't realize. It would be a long time until cancer really directly impacted me again, but it came in November of 2023. My mom was diagnosed with stage 3 colorectal cancer. She called me on a Monday, and I knew she had gotten a CT scan, but I didn't know exactly what they were going to find. When she called me that day, she told me they found a mass. And I dropped everything to go and be with her. And it was really hard to see my mom go through that. Fast forward to April of 2025. My mom was about a year out of chemo, and I had to call my mom and tell her, "You just beat cancer, but now I have it." Different kind, totally different treatment plan. But I had to tell my mom that I had cancer. In April of 2025, I went in for a surgery.
Hi everyone, I am 4 days post partial thyroidectomy, where they took the left side of my thyroid because of a 5 centimeter benign mass. As you can tell, I still am struggling to find my voice again, but that is a common side effect, so no worries.
I didn't even think twice that it could be something like cancer, even though I was connected to cancer in so many different ways. Not once did I think it was anything but benign. It took me advocating for myself and pushing to get a surgery and get it taken out before I was ever taken seriously. Terms and things were said to me like, "Are you ready to have a scar? It's benign. Why do you want it out?" But not once did anyone say to me, "Oh, we should biopsy this." I just wanted it out. I wanted it out, and thankfully I got it out. Before I even had time to process that there had been cancer in my body for multiple years, it was gone. The cancer was gone, essentially, before I even knew it was cancer.
I've been told that the mass is benign, but unfortunately, it's not.
I have spent a lot of time thinking about other people who are less fortunate, but that guilt is something that I've carried ever since my diagnosis. And it's not only what my grandma went through, what my mom went through, it's what hundreds of people I've talked to who've had cancer, because I'm a storyteller here at the Patient Story.
Leading up to the relapse, where were you at mentally? What were you thinking and feeling? What do you remember about those first conversations with your doctors? Take me back to the beginning when you were feeling like something was off. What was that like for you to have to tell your family, to tell your friends and navigate that? Because that's not easy.
I went from telling stories, listening, and truly gaining so much knowledge and life lessons from people because they were brave enough to come to the patient story, reach out, or answer a message that we had sent them and share their stories. But with that, for me, comes a lot of guilt because I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky that even though the cancer was in my body for a while and I didn't know it, it still didn't spread. But I talk to incredible humans every single day who have it so much worse. I've spoken to people that have passed away, people that have relapsed and their cancer has come back, people that are in active treatment and they're still mustering up the energy to do an hour-long interview with me. These stories, so deep, so personal, that I struggled to figure out if my story was impactful enough or worth telling. And I've come to realize that everyone's story is different, and in every story, there's a lesson. And there's something about life that you can take from that. And so that's why, for the first time, I'm sitting down and I'm telling my story from the very beginning.
This is my first appointment since my diagnosis 2 weeks ago.
I'm eating for the first time today, just some grapes, and it hurts.
Feeling good.
My incision looks good though.
My name's Taylor Scheib, and I'm originally from a really small town in Illinois. I was always the girl who wanted to get out of the small town. That was no secret to anybody. Took school very seriously. I took extracurriculars and sports very seriously, and it led me down a path where I went to the University of Iowa. I became a sports broadcaster, and I really thought that that was going to be my life. It started at Iowa with the Daily Iowan.
Desmond King is dying to get a kick or punt return. We've seen him get close. We've seen him jump over piles.
It transformed into my first real adult job in Grand Forks, North Dakota.
Embark on their first game of the season. And at the end of this flight, a tough FBS opponent in the Utah Utes awaits them.
And then I came to Spokane.
All was quiet here in the kennel as craziness has come and gone for another year.
And that's where I met my incredible husband, Justin. He is truly the light of my life. After Spokane, though, I went on to Denver and I covered professional sports.
The playoffs are here for the Colorado Rapids, and it all begins on Thanksgiving Day.
So I decided to get out of sports broadcasting. My husband and I moved back to Spokane, Washington. We love the Pacific Northwest. We take our chocolate lab sage hiking, swimming. We love camping. But when I was in sports and I was in Denver at Fox 31, that's actually when the lump appeared. I had just turned 26 and we decided to do a karaoke night. And the next morning is when I found the lump. But I immediately went to the doctor and blood work, ultrasound, no follow-up needed. The mass was presenting benign. And so it was out of sight, out of mind. I just continued on with my life. It wasn't until a year later, my husband and I were back in Spokane. One of my really good friends pointed out to me, hey, do you know that you have a lump in your neck? And to be honest, it was kind of the first time someone had pointed it out to me. She did it with the best intentions. And I just said, yeah, I actually had it checked out a year ago, but her bringing it up made me go and get it checked out again. So new doctor, new established care here in Spokane because we had just moved back here. And I went and got it checked out again. Blood work, ultrasound, again, came back, no follow-up needed. But at that point, I had noticed that the lump was getting bigger. And then there's this one picture My dog and I are sitting on a log camping, and I looked at the picture and I was so embarrassed. I was dumbfounded. I turned to my husband and I'm like, this thing is so freaking huge. And I was so mad at myself. I'm like, okay, we're done. This is it. Like, we're getting this out. So I got a referral to a ear, nose, and throat specialist, and I see this doctor, and she's like, yeah, she brought up the ultrasound. She was like, it presents benign. It doesn't look like anything. It's your choice to get it out. And man, talk about pressure. It's your choice to get it out. So I scheduled the surgery for January of 2025. My referral from my insurance doesn't go through. So I was non-emergent. Surgery was scheduled for April 18th. 2 weeks before that, I had just turned 30. My husband planned this incredible trip to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. We went and had the most incredible time. There was no indication this could be anything more. There was no talk of a pathology report. I didn't think about the pathology report. I didn't think about any of that until my mom had brought it up. She said, when are you going to get your pathology report? I said, oh, I have no idea. I didn't even really think about it. The morning that I found out it was cancer, it was a Monday. I had just been cleared to start working out again, and I started training for a 7-mile race known as the Bix. And my mom had asked all of us kids to come back and run the race with her to celebrate her being out of chemotherapy, no evidence of disease, and just celebrate her. So I started training that morning, and then that night rolled around. I'm sitting on my couch. My husband's in the kitchen cooking dinner, and I see a message in MyChart pop up. Human instincts, open it. And for me, I didn't know that opening it was going to be anything other than, it was benign, it looks good, glad he got it out. But I opened that MyChart message, and the first thing I see is carcinoma. Instantly knew what carcinoma meant. Cancer. The mass was freaking cancer. I just burst into tears. My husband stops in his track, and I just yell it out. It was cancer. And my husband drops everything, turns the burners off. He's like, what are you talking about? It was such a devastating moment. I felt like such a fool. I had taken videos before the surgery and even after, really honing in on the word benign.
In 24 hours, I'm getting a partial thyroidectomy, and it's because of this huge lump in the side of my neck.
But I was just saying the things that had been told to me for 3 years, that it was benign. And my husband and I mean, obviously he's so upset. We go into my office. The irony. I'm sitting in my office at my desk, the patient story sign behind me, and I am living in a moment that I've actually heard before. I've had people tell me in interviews, I found out I had cancer through MyChart. No one should ever find out that they have cancer through MyChart. I did call Stephanie, the founder of the patient story. I've always been honest about my mom and her situation. I started at the patient story 2 months after my mom was diagnosed with colorectal cancer. And then I'm working at this incredible healthcare organization that primarily focuses on cancer when I myself am diagnosed with cancer. So why not go straight to someone who's so well connected and really gets it? The next day, I instantly started researching second opinions because I have had conversations with people who educated me on second opinions, who taught me that getting a second opinion is important, and how blessed was I to be so privileged to know to get into to get a second opinion, specifically at a comprehensive cancer center. I came across Fred Hutch Cancer Center in Seattle. I didn't care that it was 4.5 hours away. I just really wanted to have a second set of eyes on my pathology report and just help me navigate what the next steps would be. And I called Fred Hutch. I got connected with an incredible nurse navigator, and she was so kind. She got me an appointment without even a referral. She just put me on the schedule. I went to Fred Hutch 4 weeks after my surgery, and I met my endocrinologist, Dr. Roth, and she is incredible. All she had to do was look at my pathology report to know what the next steps were, and that was a full thyroidectomy and radioactive iodine treatment.
And I can do water after, right?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And that's what I needed. I needed to just know what the next steps were and how I could just get past this. I really wanted it to be a chapter in my life story. I didn't want it to overtake me. And that's exactly what we did.
All done with surgery. Back in the hotel.
Finally get the rest of my thyroid removed. And then you have to wait 8 weeks to do radioactive iodine therapy. So this is the midst of summer. My husband and I are very active. We're very go, go, go. So I'm recovering from surgery. I'm trying to get back into my routine. I ran that 7-mile race that I had originally started training for before I found out it was cancer. I ran that race with my family and my mom, and it was so amazing and celebratory. Then we get to radioactive iodine, and that was in September of 2025.
My jaw is completely swollen. And it hurts. Obviously, you don't know what side effects you're going to have when you have radioactive iodine therapy in you, but this was not one I was expecting.
Now I'm at this phase where it is follow-ups and blood work and going to Fred Hutch for ultrasounds.
I take my thyroid medication every single morning at 5 a.m. This is my trip from Spokane to Fred Hutch Cancer Center in Seattle. My husband didn't come on this trip with me because it was going to be super quick. They saw me really, really fast. It was only about a 20-minute appointment, and they were taking that steri strip off. And when it was all said and done, voila, my scar looks amazing.
And then you get to this part where I've been in. And that is processing what has happened to you. In a way, I've had to kind of figure out who I am again. And I think after the radioactive iodine treatment, I found myself very anxious and struggling mentally. I couldn't get myself in a good rhythm. I was living on a short fuse, using my husband as a punching bag, which is not fair at all. All of this while keeping in mind, I don't have a thyroid anymore, which controls a lot of your hormones, your metabolism, and you're taking a pill now. 5 a.m. every single day, my alarm goes off, and I'm taking my thyroid medication.
Good morning. It's a little after 5 a.m. And I'm taking my thyroid medication. And now I'm going back to sleep for like 30 minutes.
I just felt like I was slipping a bit. I was just not being my best self. And I've struggled with anxiety for a long time. I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but I swear the older you get, the more anxious you become, and it just becomes more apparent in you, to the point where I would get numb. My hands would get numb. Sometimes the side of my face. I was having physical symptoms of anxiety. I didn't like myself. I hated myself. And I would use that language to myself. Sometimes I'd say it out loud. Sometimes I'd say it out loud to my husband. I hate myself. I hate my body. It felt like body betrayal, what I went through. How did I not know For 3 years, that cancer was growing inside of my body. And then you get it out and you start on the thyroid medication. And then I started having body image issues where I had gained weight. I would look at myself in photos and I would speak so horribly to myself. And I hate that I did that. I hate that I was telling myself mean things about my body and about how I looked. And it was like an identity crisis in a way. Your body just is a little confused and your mind's confused. And I don't think I was giving myself enough grace in that moment. And it's something I'm really trying to work on. And I just hated the way I felt, the way I was treating my husband, my family, my friends. Like, it was like a fake it till you make it, but my husband was seeing like the real thing of how I was feeling. And that was really, really hard. Another layer to this is that when you receive radioactive iodine therapy treatment, you can't get pregnant for a year. And 2025 was a year my husband and I had discussed starting to explore the idea of starting a family. And it was at the point where early 2025, I was telling people like, ooh, Justin and I are going to start trying. I'm going to be 30. Like, we're going to start trying. So excited. Lesson learned there. Shouldn't have done that. And it wasn't like we were actively trying when I was diagnosed with cancer, because we were not. But I wasn't on birth control. And I had to go back on birth control because of radioactive iodine treatment. If I were to get pregnant in the next year, it would be very dangerous. So I was also having a bit of a reality check of maybe Justin and I weren't ready in that moment or in 2025, but it was taken away from me. And as a woman, it's so hard. And I'm so grateful to still have the ability to hopefully carry a child someday if we decide to do that, because I know not everybody gets that chance. And people struggle with fertility issues. And my heart goes out to all of those people. And you're so happy for your friends that are getting pregnant. They're getting pregnant for the first time or with their second babies. And everyone knows I love being Auntie Taylor, but that dynamic was difficult.
Taylor. Bye-bye, Taylor. See you soon. Bye-bye, Taylor. Bye-bye, Auntie Taylor. Bye-bye, Auntie Taylor.
And so I was processing all of these emotions of hating myself, hating my body betrayal, not being able to start a family with Justin. And I got into a really deep, dark place. And then I started to climb out of it. The start of 2026, I really committed to myself, to my body, to routine, and doing things that make me happy. Another big thing, and not something I've expressed a whole lot. Some of my friends and my mom, of course, my family knows, but I started taking anxiety medication.
Time to take my anxiety medication. I always take it at night before I go to bed.
And that was a huge step for me. So again, my body's going through a lot. Thyroid medication, I'm back on birth control. Anxiety medication, I'm really taking care of myself. Of course, I slip in a cheeseburger every now and then. Everyone who knows me knows that I'm a sucker for a cheeseburger. But truly, like, I've shifted. And it's not just physical for me. It's truly mental. It is a mental game for me at this point. And I'm so proud of myself for taking care of my mind and my body and just recentering myself. And as I've recentered myself, one thing that I talked about at the beginning of my story was the dynamic of, is my story important? Is it important enough to share? Is it worth sharing? Am I ready to just close this chapter? All those questions swirling around in my head. And thyroid cancer is looked at as the easy cancer. I am fully aware that it is a very treatable cancer.
Just got done with my ultrasound.
And I'm forever grateful for that. It doesn't mean that my story's not worth sharing, though. But I'd be lying if I didn't say I was terrified to share my story, especially on a platform and a place where I interview so many people who have it so much worse than me. And I always keep that perspective in my mind. But those very people taught me to advocate for myself, to get second opinions, to share my story, to be brave enough to share my story. And there's things in the story that I haven't expressed out loud. So in a way, this is my own little personal diary. And looking back at the person who was diagnosed in April 2025 to the person I am now, she's the same girl. She's just grown. She's grown up a little bit. It's truly a full circle moment to share my story and to continue sharing stories of others who are going through cancer. No matter what stage, no matter what type, no matter where you're at in your story, timing is truly everything. And no matter what you believe in, everything does truly happen for a reason, at least I think. I was exactly where I needed to be at the exact time of my diagnosis. And now what can I do? I can share my story. I can continue spreading that language and those words that people have taught me before. Sharing your story, sharing your light, sharing your truth is so incredibly important. You don't know who it will reach or who it will impact. And I just think that's really, really special. Thank you so much for watching my patient story. It took a lot of guts, a lot of bravery to share this, but I'm so grateful to have this platform to do so. And if my story resonated with you at all, I'd love to introduce you to one of our team members, Allie. She shared her story and it's queued up for you right here. And please make sure you subscribe to the Patient Story community, where you'll see me interviewing so many incredible people with their inspiring stories. We want you to join the Patient Story community because we're humanizing cancer one story at a time and always telling people and reminding people that you're never alone.